Welcome, fellow detectives. Today I want to dig for treasures. But what makes a good treasure hunt? In this video we are going to look at different types of treasures, hunts and puzzle mechanics. And we might also talk about the next project for this channel. For the past few years I somehow became at least kind of obsessed with puzzles and riddles. It became a niche interest for me and a hobby I started enjoying during the COVID pandemic. And for a few months I uploaded videos on another murder mystery puzzle named The Researcher's First Murder, which I eventually solved. If you like this topic, then please subscribe to the channel and join me on my journey. It all started with TikTok and videos about Cain's Jawbone, a murder mystery puzzle that was revived by Unbound, but originally written in the 1930s. I quickly got drawn into the puzzle and at first had a tough time solving it. Eventually, I solved it after a few months, and that is when it kicked in for me, so I developed an interest for puzzle mechanics and writing. Because I am from Germany, my focus was set to German things. That is why when the biggest treasure hunt to date in Germany kicked off, I was invested. It was called Schatzsuche and developed by Joko and Klaas, two famous television hosts, and they promised 1 million euros for the person arriving at the exact spot they hid the money. To do so, you had to solve several puzzles that all gave you some numbers. They were constructed in a way that they provided at least a single digit and the corresponding slot in the coordinates you had to fill out. Over the course of time, you could roughly estimate where the prize was going to be set up. Some people developed tools that showed all the possible outcomes for the coordinates on a map of Germany. For over a week, this was a huge topic on social media and even famous streamers got involved. On one hand, that is great, but on the other, this turned out to be a bigger problem, at least in my opinion. Let's have a closer look in chapter 1. The treasure hunt of Joko and Klaas consisted of 6 videos or individual puzzles that had no real connection in terms of mechanics. Instead, there was a deeper connection regarding a good cause in cooperation with the DKMS to fight blood cancer. But let's take that aside and concentrate on the puzzles themselves. It started with a simple scene, Joko and Klaas sitting in front of each other and getting handed a bagel and a breadstick. They only said wie and so, additionally using their fingers to gesture. If you haven't guessed already, they were using a simple binary system that you could track. Everything screamed 0 and 1. If you noted all the bits, you could translate that into Apache. As this doesn't provide a number directly, we need to take another step and connect this to a famous German rapper called Apache 207. The solution to the first puzzle was 2, 0 and 7. Pretty easy, right? At that point, I really thought it was a soft start, just to include everyone and give you a first success. Unfortunately, it turned out to stay that shallow in terms of mechanics. The following puzzles were similarly easy, but I want to speak about one more in particular. Before, I need to say that I did not want to accept it that it was that easy, and I really thought they had planned a second layer of complexity, because who would make it that easy to win 1 million euros? I was wrong, and there was no additional layer. And this is going to be a thing later in the video again, so remember that please. A strange part of the videos was this one. The scene was a little obscure. The both of them stood in what seems to be a cellar, and they recited a poem and pressed the numbers on an old phone. The word on the book Klaas holds is Yumruk, which means fist in Turkish. Or in German, Faust. By googling the recited lines, you would directly be led to Faust, written by Goethe. So why was it in Turkish? Let's keep that in mind. While reciting, Klaas left out 2 words in the poem. To be precise, it was bells. When Joko started to type in the numbers on the phone, the melody he played became quickly familiar as Brother John. This guy seems to be called so many different names in all the different languages, just realized that. To solve this puzzle, all you had to do was to identify the number being pressed when the bell rings in this song, Ding Dong. Because you knew how many digits you needed, that confirmed it pretty easily. And that's it, nothing more to see here. And I really thought it was deeper. I did not want to accept it that way and started questioning it. Why the Turkish word? Why the connection between the poem and the telephone? Why does he beep out the words bell with the telephone? Let me construct an alternative solution and you can judge in the comments down below whether this is a better way to solve it. If we take the Turkish country code you put before a phone number, here we use the Turkish piece in combination with a telephone, we get a 90. Already 2 digits. Cool. The beep on the bells could be interpreted as a delete, so we might find out the corresponding numbers being pressed when the bells ring in Brother John and subtract them from 90. We are then left with another 2-digit number that uses all the elements involved instead of wasting space in the puzzle with unnecessary stuff. That is what clicked for me back then. A good and functioning puzzle uses all of the elements presented in some way. Everything that does not support the way to the solution is cut out. That seems reasonable and fair to me. And still, the combination can be complex and not easy to get. One more reason to rather be disappointed by this particular treasure hunt. To conclude the story, in the end, someone who has not solved a single puzzle by himself won. Only because he watched one of Germany's biggest streamers solving the final piece of the puzzle live on stream.
Das ist unfassbar! Du hast es gelöst!
Ja, ich danke, Papa Platte.
It was a very common and easy to solve riddle. And realized he lives right next to the hiding spot. And in fact, the money was not even hidden. It was placed under a white van. What could have been a thrilling and tempting experience with a picture-in-picture situation live on TV turned out to be a 10-minute time span with almost no suspense. It was over as soon as the final bit dropped live. And to top it off, when the winner should describe his way of solving live on TV right after he won, he wasn't even able to do. He was just a lucky winner. Chapter 2. Gold and Greed on Netflix. Another very interesting piece of television is the Forrest Fenn treasure documentary on Netflix. I recently watched all 3 parts and enjoyed my time. Basically, it is about a treasure hidden somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, a vast area to be honest, and all you had to do was understand a poem. This poem included 9 clues to the location of the treasure, and whoever arrived first should win and keep it. Designed was this treasure by Forrest Fenn, a former pilot who wrote kind of an autobiography with this poem included. He buried the treasure chest himself, so only he, a roughly 80-year-old man back then, knew where exactly it lay. For a few years, Americans were searching for this treasure. They used different approaches basically because they all interpreted different things from the poem. It certainly left much room for it, and when you watch the documentary, you'll be amazed about what they come up with. The connections people draw are hilarious. One guy trains his dog on smelling bronze, even at a depth of a few feet down into the ground. At this point, I really recommend watching the documentary, because it turned out to be another treasure hunt itself. I have not spent time on this yet, but certainly will, although my chances to travel to the US to find this new chest is pretty limited due to a couple of reasons. If you want to, I can do another video on the whole treasure hunt and explain more and share my thoughts. Let me know in the comments. What the whole hunt showed me, the treasure hunt is not the actual hunt. It is way more about the experience and the adventure that comes along. You spend so much time outside and working your thoughts, getting new ideas and thinking creatively that it is a real pleasure, at least for me. It gives you a real mission, like the guys trying to remove a boulder in the documentary. They feel a purpose and they are driven by the thought of discovering actual gold. But also, the documentary showed how dangerous this can be. Some people died while searching because they were so desperate and took unnecessary risks while searching. If they would have listened to the instructions, they would have known that the treasure is hidden somewhere an 80-year-old man could still go. Nothing to climb or to raft, obviously. And then there is this thing called gold fever. Desperation can be really dangerous. As it took around 10 years for the treasure to be found, I consider this to be a good hunt. And in the end, it was actually quite easy, I guess. Maybe I am biased because once you know the solution, it always seems way easier than you thought. But with this much room for interpretation, people went crazy with their attempts to solve. And they actually landed in so many different areas around the Rocky Mountains. Chapter 3. There's treasure inside. Finalizing this video with a chapter about an ongoing treasure hunt seems appealing. For a few weeks, I've been working on There's Treasure Inside, a hunt very similar to the Forrest Fenn treasure hunt. And it is inspired by that because one chapter directly refers to Forrest. The book describes the contents of the treasure boxes, as there are 5 of them. Hidden inside these chests are gold nuggets, coins and fancy jewelry, Olympic gold medals and historic artifacts and more. Each chapter gives you the reason why these items were included and what makes them special. And in between the lines and images printed, there are the hints for finding the boxes. To come off straight, what I really like is the 2-level strategy of this hunt. You can first work on the smaller boxes because they have a dedicated chapter with more direct clues to their spot. and each of the 4 smaller boxes contains an exclusive hint on where to find the biggest chest. The book already inspired me, and I need to say that once again, the probability of me flying to the US to go on the hunt myself is pretty low, especially with the current situation over there. I still like to work on it. I started reading books recommended in There's Treasure Inside and really enjoyed the time I spent. And it might help me solve some pieces. The thing I still wonder about is how much you should engage with others in forums like Reddit or elsewhere. If you read too many theories, you will be pulled into directions that are not your own. I've seen so many videos on social media of people traveling and searching, sharing thoughts and theories, and yet no success. The author of There's Treasure Inside states several times that you should be confident with your imagination and your own creativity. Let these guide you while searching. And remembering the Golden Greed documentary on Netflix, I'd say this is a good way. Don't jump on things others say they are sure about. Build your own theory and enjoy working on it. Although I am right at the beginning of the puzzle, I have a lot of fun by consciously avoiding Reddit threads. But more on that in another video where we can dive way deeper into this project if you're interested in that. So in the end, what makes a good treasure hunt? You won't get into danger. You find purpose in doing the hunt. You get to go outside and work with your brain instead of becoming brain dead with your smartphone. You engage kindly with others sharing the mission. It is not being solved quickly, and most important, everything provided to solve the puzzle is relevant. If you liked the video, hit subscribe and like and share it with others that could use a treasure hunt. Also, click on the videos linked on the screen to learn more about my completed journey with The Researcher's First Murder, probably one of the most difficult puzzles currently out there. Bye!